Here we go. Here we go. This could be interesting. Sorry about the light balance. Oh my gosh. It's kind of crazy. My movements are backwards. It's fine. I'm fine. It's fine. So we're having a little bit of work done on the house right now. And so there are people kind of in and out of the house, and every once in a while the compressor goes off with a nail gun. So it just went off. So I'm just like fingers crossed that it's gonna stay off for the majority of the time we're hanging out today. We'll see. We'll see. Dare to dream, I say. Just live on the edge. Woo! I'm also, because I'm in a different location here, I'm holding my phone so I can go on Instagram Live. Such a professional. Such a profesh. So profesh. Anyway, let's get to it, shall we? Just, if only to outrun the compressor. So, good afternoon. Good afternoon. This is Dr. Shannon Coates. I am here doing some live office hours. I'm about 45 minutes to an hour north of Toronto in the traditional lands of the Haudenosaunee, the Anishinaabe, the Mississauga, and Wendat and Sioux peoples. And I had some thoughts today. I'm, as many of you may know, I'm doing a contemporary voice practicum right now. So there are 9 voice teachers involved in that practicum. And we've been talking about the differences between teaching in sort of Western classical styles and teaching in contemporary styles. And so a discussion around embodiment came up, and we've had some really lovely kind of thoughts and discussion around that today. Through the week we've had that. And so I thought I would just throw a few thoughts out there around embodiment and moving with intention and moving with creating an embodiment of the music versus compensatory movement. And the reason I wanted to talk about that is just because as voice teachers so often, especially if we've had Western classical training, so often, I mean, I know I was, told throughout my Western classical training, stay still, put your hands at your side, stay still, or when you're acting, stay still, as you're singing this music, blah, 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 like keep still, stay still. And I've trained singers that way too. And the reason that we do hey lady, hey Michelle, and the reason that we have this idea around no movement, especially in Western classical singing, it seems to me, the reason that we have this is that we have this idea, or because of how precise the coordination needs to be in order to create the tones that we're looking for, those tonal outcomes that we're looking for in Western classical singing. The precision of the coordination that's required is really intense, right? It's really intense. So as we're learning that precision, as we're learning that coordination, that really intense coordination, on the journey to learning it, we're going to go through phases where we're going to be compensating and where we're going to be doing it wrong, and we're going to have miscoordination. We're going to have a lot of miscoordination on that journey to getting toward that Western classical tonal outcome, consistent. Oh, it's cutting out a lot? Oh, shoot. Hopefully it's not me. I'm sorry. Yikes, yikes. Hopefully, let me know if it's cutting out a lot. Sorry. Anyway, on that journey to our consistent Western classical tonal outcome and the coordination that's required for that tonal outcome, we're going to have a lot of messiness, right? It's going to be very messy on the way. And so as we learn that, often we have this kind of real, oh, it sounds okay there? Good, yay, Jen, good. And I'm good, okay, great, thanks, Wendy. We have this real kind of focus, we can get this real focus on the technique, and it can be such that we learn the technique as we learn that the coordination is the ultimate, and any kind of movement that might be compensatory in some way is going to be negative, and it's going to take away from our singing. And we kind of have this sort of all or nothing, right? And we learn that we can never, as Western classical singers, we learn that we should never, come forward in the body. We should never be swaying to the music. We should never have we should never be using our hands in performance. We should never, we learn a lot of things about what we should and should not be doing in terms of movement in the body as we're training in Western classical singing. And I hear this from singers all the time. I wasn't allowed to move, and it felt like I was being restrained. It felt like I was doing something that wasn't natural. It felt completely unnatural. It's like in singing jail. I couldn't move while I was learning to sing, especially in our Western classical styles. And like I said, I think that the reason for this is that the coordination that's required, it's so precise that we kind of really hone in on that really intense coordination, and we lose sight of some of the bigger movements, and we lose sight of some of the embodiment. We lose sight of, we kind of get real focused. Oh yeah, stay grounded, yep. And we get real focused on the technique. And we lose sight sometimes of the larger picture. We lose sight sometimes of the bigger things at play because of how precise this technique needs to be. And I'm not saying that's not like anyone is lying to you in some cases, right? The staying grounded, I think that is wonderful. I think we should stay grounded in many, like there's something to do with staying grounded. And I think that, there are many times when the hands are doing something that is distracting or that is removing energy. And there are lots of times for me where when I was training, where I would move real far forward in the body because I wanted to communicate, right? I'd be like, ha, ha, trying to sing like really far forward to communicate to you. And so that's compensatory behaviors, right? Those are compensatory movements, or the movements where you're doing movements where you're locked forward maybe, or you're locked back, or your jaw's doing something crazy, or you're doing things that are not necessarily that are there to compensate for something that isn't working as well as it should, rather than these are movements that are aiding and are helping you to embody sound and embody the music and respond to coordination and respond to flow and respond, right? So I kind of just wanted to put that out there for your teaching this week, and maybe for your own singing, so that when you start to see movements in the singers you're working with, or even in your own singing, when you start to see movements in maybe they're swaying to the music, maybe they're using some hand gestures, maybe they're getting too far forward in their body for the total outcome that we're looking for the kind of coordination that we're looking for. When you start to see movements in the body, see for yourself whether there's a way to reframe that movement and to move it from something that might be compensatory and or a non-positive energy movement and seeing whether you can find a way to make that a positive energy movement, or an embodying kind of movement, a movement that gets you closer to the movement, to the music, and gets you responding more to the music. So some of my thoughts around that are, as singers and as singing teachers, we're often like saying, we go like, oh, here's the sound, or here's the sound, or here's what we want you to do. Notice those kinds of gestures that are happening in the singer's body, or in yours as you're demonstrating, and make it explicit, but make it explicit as a response to what you want to happen in the coordination. So if I'm looking for more flow, I might do something like this with my hand, or if I'm looking for a warmer sound, I might do something like this with my hand, a loftier sound, I might do something like that. If I'm looking for something that has a little bit more rhythm, I might start to do this kind of movement. If I'm looking for something that has a little bit more intensity in the sound, if I want something that has a little more pressurization, so I'm getting a little better coordination for maybe a belt, I might do something like that. I might do something like that with my hand. And all of the movements that may start to occur naturally, if you will, in the body, start to just notice those and then see if you can make them explicit and turn them into a response to the rhythm, a response to, like, what does my body want to do for this rhythm? Not what does my body want to do because it isn't able to do the thing that I want it to do. Gosh, does that make sense? What is my body doing because I'm asking it to do something right now that it's not yet able to do? So what is it doing to compensate? And friends, we are all compensating all the time in specific ways. We are all doing, there is no one on the planet who is not, no singer on the planet who is not compensating in some way or another. None of these instruments function perfectly. No instrument is set up to be absolutely perfectly coordinated physiologically or in the brain. None of us. Zero peoples, right? All of us have like one leg that's shorter than the other. All of us have like one side of the tongue that doesn't, not all of us, but all of us have something that is uneven or that doesn't work as, it doesn't coordinate as well as it could, or we all have something that's uneven. And most of us have many things that we must compensate for. So what we're looking for in singers, and what we're looking for in ourselves, is permission to find the movement that is going to be embodiment and that is going to bring the most freedom and the best kind of response to what's happening in the music. I mean, we can respond to how we're coordinating for tonal outcomes. We can respond to rhythm. We can respond to text. We can respond to emotion. We can respond to the orchestra or the band. We can respond to the wall of sound that's coming out of a grand piano, right? Like, you stand in front of a grand piano and sing some, I don't know, Brahms. You'll feel that like wall of sound is coming out, and you respond to that in a specific way in your body. And if you want to respond in your body in this kind of way, that's terrific. Let's make it explicit and figure it out. What is the best response in your body for, I wrote down a whole bunch of things, for rhythm, harmony. What is the best response in your body to a change in a harmonic structure? What's the best response in your body to a change in rhythm or to just an upbeat rhythm? Some of you may have seen the post I made the other day of, her name's gone right out of my head. Of course, here I am always trying to remember names. Pop rock coach who does like incredibly fun warm-ups, and so she had a tongue twister going on. If you're doing a tongue twister with a like upbeat rhythm, if you're just using your articulators, I mean, that's one thing, and that is a way to work on something for sure. But if you respond to the rhythm if you let your body respond to what's happening in the rhythm of that tongue twister, or you create a rhythm around it, you create an energy around it, and let your body respond as part of that exercise. Just try that with students you're working with. Try it with yourself. See what happens in terms of response and in terms of freeing and releasing and getting the coordination that you're actually looking for if you're responding to or embodying the rhythm, rather than just thinking about the text, right? What am I doing with my tongue and my lips and my teeth? What am I doing with my tongue and my lips and my teeth? So especially, I was going to say, especially if you're working with Western classical singers, but honestly, all singers, we allow our contemporary singers and our music theater singers sometimes to be more responsive than we do our Western classical singers often. And so just, especially if you're working with Western classical singers and your first instinct is to say, okay, stop that movement in your body, just see what other just see how you can redirect a movement, or see how you can find a movement that is responsive to what you're singing. What can you find in a gesture that allows for that embodiment that the body really wants to do, and allows for greater coordination, and allows for you to have the tonal outcomes you're looking for, and the freedom you're looking for, and the movement that you're looking for, and then make that explicit. Make that the movement, rather than whatever the other movement in that might not be as useful. So whenever I talk about this, the question almost always is, yeah, but what if they do it in performance? You know what? So what if they do it in performance? First of all, so what if they do it in performance? But having said that, I get it. But where is the harm? In fact, it is a beautiful way to learn. If you've got gestures that you're using in rehearsal and as you're learning coordinations, and if you have movement that you're using as you're learning coordinations, there is zero harm in learning those in the practice room and having them with you in the studio. And then a week, 10 days, 3 days before you start to perform, start to think the movements and then bring them into focus. Start to think them and bring them into focus. And yes, I will, one of the most beautiful examples of this is something that, I mean, there are examples of this all over the place, right? And I've posted stuff all the time too, but I'll track it down and post it on Facebook. Sorry, Instagram, you don't get it, but I'll get the link and post it on Facebook. That Heidi Moss brought to my attention at some point in one of her classes, and it is a well-known classical singer. Again, can't remember any names. Amazing. Who in rehearsal, or maybe it was in a recording performance, I can't remember, but you can literally, I'll post it, you can take a look at it, you can literally turn off the sound and you will almost know what's happening in that voice just by watching her hand gestures. Because her hand gestures are allowing, they're embodying that sound, they're giving the sound the meaning and movement, and there's actual like brain science behind gestures and how it relates to the vocal folds and the larynx, but won't get into that right now. Go talk to Heidi about that if you want a little bit more information on that. But no, go pay Heidi if you want a little more information on that. Go have a consult with her, pay her. But like there is some science around that. But this is a very well known. Is it Natalie Dessay? I can't remember now. I will look it up and post it. But very well known singer who doesn't do unnecessary, quote unquote, distracting, quote unquote, movements in performance. Somehow she figured out how to not have the unnecessary or distracting movements in performance. I promise. Your students will too. You will too. Pinky swear. I pinky swear. In performance, you will. Pinky swear. In performance, you will start to be able to move those movements. Haha, see what I did there? You'll start to be able to redirect those movements, and they'll still be with you in your body. They'll still be there directing you. You'll still be able to embody those movements and have them in a focused way and in the way that supports your singing. I promise. So this is something that we again, that especially if we've been trained in Western classical singing, we do our contemporary singers, our popular music singers, we really do them a disservice when we tell them to stay still while they're learning music. We really do a big disservice to singers when we tell them to do that. So, if that is your instinct, and maybe over the weekend, just kind of consider if that's your instinct for yourself. I know lots of folks here are performers as well, or are still performing as well. So for yourself and or for the singers that you're working with, if your instinct is to dampen the movement or to say no movement, consider how you can actually bring that movement on board and actually create an embodiment with that movement. Yes, even with classical singers. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing. So consider that and look at this. I made it through 20 minutes, live office hours, with the compressor didn't go off. Now, they may have all gone for lunch. I may have just hit the timing right. So they may have just turned it off, but anyway, I'm gonna quit while I'm ahead, and wishing you a fabulous weekend. Hope you have a great weekend. Talk soon. Ending. Oh, ending.